Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I am Jordan Hill. Got a special guest with me this week talking about the Missouri Tigers. We've got Calum McAndrew with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Calum, just how is this Wednesday treating you as we get ready for another big SEC East game?
Oh, absolutely fantastic! Good to be in an SEC schedule. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Well, we're going to jump right into this thing talking about Georgia getting on the going back on the road. It's kind of funny. This is Georgia's second SEC trip of the year, second trip to Columbia, just a different Columbia, coming to Missouri after going to South Carolina earlier in this year. We're going to preview this game between Georgia and Missouri, talk a little bit about both teams, and talk about getting the Missouri perspective, things to watch for and things to keep an eye on as we get ready for that game. And Calum, I want to just start with what's sort of been the talk about Missouri this week, and it's going back to last Saturday, a really kind of hard to fathom loss to Auburn, 17-14 in overtime, a game that I know a lot of people around, even just the SEC and college football in general, that game really stood out. Some reasons not so good, but Auburn winning that game and Missouri just missing out on a road win. Tell me about your experience just watching that game, and then what have you heard from Eli Drinkwitz, the players, since that game as they get ready to play the number one team in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the talk around town is just how to deal with yet another existential crisis. A win that was won 4 times. They had this game wrapped up in regulation. They had it wrapped up twice on Auburn's possession. They had it wrapped up once and almost on their own possession in overtime. Just one of the most Missouri things that's ever happened. We're hearing, talking to Blake Baker, he's impressed with what they managed to do on the road in the SEC West defensively. Holding a team to 14 points, holding them to 6 straight punts in the second half, so they're impressed on that side. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Drinkwitz is really just about cleaning up those mistakes. Same issues are plaguing over and over again. Penalties, negative yardage play, just the same issues that haunted them for the first 3 weeks and in quote unquote lighter part of their schedule still hurt them as soon as they entered into the SEC. So yeah, that's kind of where this Columbia is.
Tell me about an update, just the latest you guys have heard on Luther Burden, a guy that Georgia fans knew well. It was somebody Georgia went after hard in recruiting. What's he sort of been dealing with, and what is the latest you guys have heard as we get closer and closer to Saturday?
Yeah, so we talked to Drinkwitz yesterday. He said that Luther Burden is questionable for Saturday's matchup. There was a lot of questions as to why he wasn't out on the field very much against Auburn. Turns out he picked up an injury. We're assuming it was on his second target of the day. It got tipped. It was intercepted. We think he went off. Drinkwitz said that he was only meant to return punts from there on out, which he did pretty successfully when he first did it in week 3. But he didn't actually end up going out and doing that. He did end up running more plays. So I think the consensus is that he'll probably be okay. He was out on the field, although he wasn't running many drills during practice yesterday. But we'll see. The general problem there has been, even out with the injury that he apparently sustained against Auburn, he just hasn't been getting targeted a lot. And Drinkwitz has spoken a lot about this as well. You've got to keep in mind this is a true freshman. It's difficult to make that leap from high school into SEC football, into college football in general. So they're easing him in a little bit, probably easing him in too much for the liking of a lot of Missouri fans. When you've got the most talented recruit you've had in 9-10 years, you want him involved in every single play. So still questionable for Saturday's matchup. If he is available, we'll see how much he gets targeted. It hasn't really been that much through the first 4 weeks of the season.
Looking at this Missouri team as a whole, not so much just that game last week, through 4 games, what's sort of your assessment of this offense? Having a new quarterback leading the way with Brady Cook, what has stood out to you about the things that have worked and maybe some of the things they're going to look to clean up before Saturday?
Yeah, it's difficult to, and I said this before the Auburn matchup, and all of this still rings true, I think. they're a little bit hampered by what they can do, just because they really are struggling on this offensive line. Through 3 games, they gave up 26 tackles for loss. Auburn really managed to create a little bit of chaos back there as well. They're just struggling to get anything going. They really got the run game going against Auburn. Nathaniel Pete was bouncing off tackles left, right, and center. He ended up running for more than 100 yards, and I think I wouldn't be surprised to see about 80 of that was yards after carry. Yards after contact. Had a really good game, but still, Brady Cook's just not getting the time in the pocket that he needs to throw it. That they're really, really struggling there. So it's difficult to assess where they are schematically. It's difficult to assess where a lot of these playmakers are talent-wise, just because they aren't getting the time they need to show what they can do. Having said that, there are still a lot of questions, especially around quarterback. Where Cook through a couple of articles, but early on, these slow starts, it's the same old issue. They're just not connecting on these deep balls. He's overthrowing. He's missing. Receivers are dropping. There are a lot of issues there, but it's difficult to tell when the line is just has the holes that it does, and now it has another injury at right tackle with Zeke Powell out for the season.
You try to sometimes take positives from even ugly losses like that game last week. And I couldn't help looking back on that game, being struck by Missouri's run defense. Our friend Justin Ferguson over at the Auburn Observer had this stat that Tank Bigsby, Auburn's leading running back, had 62 yards after contact. Well, he wound up with 44 total yards, which just tells you how good of a job Missouri did getting in the backfield, hitting him before he ever got to the line of scrimmage. What do you feel like worked for Missouri as far as stopping the run against Auburn? And is that something that you guys have seen through these first 4 games this far?
It really has. And I don't think anyone on the Missouri beat or in the town of Columbia would have ever guessed it before the start of the season. The fresh memory of this Missouri run defense is like hide behind your couch stuff. Like they last season they couldn't stop an old lady in a stroller. It was unbelievable. But through these first 4 games, they only gave up, I think it was 11 yards in their season opener against Louisiana Tech on the run. Stopped one of the most talented running backs in the country in Tank Bigsby there on Saturday. Deuce Vaughn hurt them a little bit at Kansas State. But that's an incredibly talented player, and that was more offensive issues, putting the defense back on the field over and over and over again with turnovers. Blake Baker came in and he said this scheme's going to be aggressive. It's going to try and create chaos. Before the Auburn game, he said that we have been giving up some boneheaded plays, but we're also showing some positive signs. I asked him yesterday if this was more what he wanted to see from his defensive unit, and he said absolutely. That was the shining example of what we want to do with this defensive front. They really, really, really hurt Auburn. And look, Auburn isn't great. No one's claiming that they're going to make any ripples in the SEC West for the remainder of the season. But still, a road SEC game, going down to the Plains and being able to cause that much damage, it's always something worth taking note of.
Before we take a break, Calum, I wanted to just see on both sides of the ball. We've talked about a few of the playmakers for Missouri. Mm-hmm. Who are some other guys that just Georgia fans should keep an eye on? Guys that have impressed you guys, or guys who may play a factor in this game on Saturday?
Oh, well, the big one, he's leading the SEC in reception yards right now, is wide receiver Dominic Lovett. It was funny earlier in the season. He had a career game in, I want to say week 3 against Abilene Christian. He's another kid that went to East St. Louis, like Luther Burden, was kind of out of the spotlight because Burden came in, and now he's putting together a really, really good season. His production was rather limited in his true freshman season last year, but now him and Brady Cook seem to form a really, really good connection. They're connecting on more passes, more yards than anyone else on the team by far. Really fast, really intelligent runner, really, great on routes. Dominic Lovett's definitely a player to watch. On the other end of the ball, we're going to go back to that defensive front with Tyrone Hopper, obviously. But Missouri's corners have really, really impressed so far this season. Chris Abrams-Drain's been a really talented player. He hasn't given up, to my knowledge, anything substantial all season. Jalen Carlisle has really shown some great moments at safety. They're a very decent secondary.
Yeah, Chris Abrams, Drain. I watched him in high school when I covered Alabama high school football, and he went to Spanish Fort and just ran all over Opelika one night. He is a very special athlete.
Really interesting player as well. Got recruited as a wide receiver. He played quarterback in high school, and then moved over to. He's played a couple of different positions in the secondary as well for Missouri. Really interesting story.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll bounce back, be back with Calum, talk a little bit about this matchup, and talk about our predictions for what we'll see on Saturday. Welcome back, everybody. Well, yeah, looking at this game on Saturday, going to be 6:30 kickoff Central Time. Talk a little bit about these matchups. You know, it's very clear that the money is on Georgia. Georgia is a 28-point favorite going into this game, and let's talk a little bit about what we expect to see and the matchup I think I am most interested in, Calum, and then you can kind of give me your read on it or see if there's something else that kind of strikes you, is how that secondary we were just talking about from Missouri handles Georgia. This has been a Georgia offense that has thrown the ball a lot more than really Georgia fans are used to. You know, it's really over the years, even going back before Kirby Smart was here as the head coach, ground and pound, and then you kind of open up the offense with play action because you're running the ball so well. That's not necessarily been the case so far this year. They've really let Stetson Bennett, a super senior, kind of open things up, throw the ball around, even get some of those running backs involved with the passing game, maybe more so than we were accustomed to seeing. So I think my biggest thing, the biggest matchup I want to see is how those guys like the Chris Abrams strain we were just talking about, how they can handle if Georgia goes after them, you know, what they're able to do if that Missouri defense is able to throw any wrenches in the game. You know, they might see some stuff from Kent State. I mean, because Kent State has the only interception on Stetson Bennett so far this year, which I would say surprises a lot of people that was the game where it happened. But is that a matchup that strikes you, or what is a matchup that you think will be something really to watch when we get into Saturday night?
Yeah, no, I think that is a really interesting one. You know, you go back to last year's game in Athens when Missouri was really struggling at stopping the run. Everyone that came to Columbia, every time Missouri went to visit someone else, they were handing balls off and just running wild. And Georgia, it was assumed they were going to do the same, like you say, traditionally a ground and pound team. They didn't. Stetson Bennett opened it up and lit the secondary up. He was out of the game in the second half, and here's on him. JT Daniels came out and did exactly the same thing for the third and fourth quarters. So yeah, I mean, this is it's weird to see a revamped Georgia offense. I mean, national champions, but you know, this is an even better looking Georgia offense. I think that's going to be incredibly interesting. Like I say, a lot of talented players in Missouri secondary. We mentioned Chris Abrams, Drain, Jalen Carlisle, also guys like Ennis Rakestraw, Dalen Carnell playing at the star with Martez Manuel switching out. Have had a good couple of weeks. Really, really interesting matchup. It'll be interesting to see how they cope with that and if they are able to handle it.
Let's talk about predictions, what you want to see. If you want to give a score, by all means. Sometimes you get people on here and they're like, I want to save that, put it maybe behind a paywall or something. I'll start and say that I'm going to say Georgia wins this 42-10. I think they're just going to cover what I think is a 28-point spread. What is your thought on this game? And two, if Missouri is going to hang around, what has to go well for them to be in the mix once we get into this one?
Ooh, everything.
Yes, that's fair enough.
That seems like the right answer. I don't know, they might have to shut off the lights and play the game in the dark at night. You know, that's they just, try and trick them a little bit. I don't know. Everything has to go right. They have to shore up these holes on the offensive line. They have to maybe get a little bit tricky with their plays, which we know Drinkwitz is accustomed to do sometimes. The defense is going to have an even better game than it did last Saturday against Auburn. there's no one. No, I implore you to find someone that expects Missouri to win this game. It would be incredibly ironic. It would be incredibly Missouri thing to do, to lose a heartbreaker and then turn around and upset the world. But I don't see it happening. Just these O-line struggles, the talent that is on Georgia's defensive front. I don't see Missouri really threatening the end zone very often in this game. I'm going to say 35-6. I think that's
just sneaking in to cover.
Just sneaking in the coverage there. You heard it here first.
Well, how cool is this? One of the comments, CBS 88 said, "I named my son Calum." You never hear it over here, which is the complete opposite from over there. That's pretty neat.
I like that as well. 1L. That's the true Scottish way. That's good. That's none of this 2L nonsense. That's.
I can say I learned something today. Well, Calum, before we get out of here, be sure to plug anything you're either working on or podcast, anything else you got going on. I want to make sure going into this weekend that our readers, our listeners, can check out what you guys have going on the Missouri side, getting ready for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work over at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch with Dave Matter. We're always cranking out stuff. I'm working on an article about true freshman Tavares Jones this week. Should be coming out sometime late, just before the game. Missouri's not had the run production that it would like over the past few weeks, especially in the absence of SEC Missouri All-Star Tyler Beatty. So they've got this new guy in from Texas, really interesting character, could be the future of this backfield, even if he doesn't see too much production this year. Yeah, we're always over at STL today. It's the St. Louis Post-Dispatch bringing out stuff. I think my Twitter handle's on there somewhere if you want to see my inane ramblings. Yeah, that's all there.
Yeah, make sure and follow him. And I hate to put you on the spot, but I have to ask, can you give me one good Lad McConkey in your accent? I think it just fits so well with the accent.
Yeah, I was shocked when I found out he wasn't Scottish. That's ridiculous. There's if you're Lad McConkey, you've got to be from Glasgow or something, surely. He's faking that American accent. Yeah, Lad McConkey. There we go. It's usually money for the jukebox, by the way.
Beautiful. Beautifully done. Well, Calum, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody listening, everybody tuning in. Make sure and follow Calum on Twitter, all the stories he's going to have coming out of this weekend. And looking forward to being up there in Columbia and hopefully see you in the press box on Saturday.
Absolutely.